We're here today to swear in our new mayor, Robin Mouton, and I think all of you have come out to show your support of her because she needs it. I promise you, I know. So we so much appreciate everyone's attendance today, and if I don't get the opportunity, Robin, we served together 6 years. Congratulations. I'm very proud for you, and I will support you in any way I can. Our invocation today will be given by Pastor Edison Colbert Jr. with Paradise Baptist Church. Everyone, if you so choose, please stand with me and remain standing for the pledge to our nation's flag. Immediately following our invocation, the pledge will be given by Chadlin Coleman. Thank you, Pastor.
Seeing in the times at which we are, if we would, can we just bump elbows? Just, you know, instead of I would ask everybody if they would get hands, but
I'll hold your hand.
because there's something about the touch. Let us bow our heads. If you want to join hands, please. That's the prayer. Gracious and heavenly God, our Father, Lord, once again, dear God, we come with our hearts sprinkled with thanksgiving, sprinkled with love and joy and peace. We thank you for this opportunity. But God, as we come filled with thanksgiving and just being grateful unto you. We thank you, God, for a country that we can live in, that we can pursue happiness, we can pursue joy, freedoms. We thank you for this country. Lord, as we pray for those that are in leadership in our country, we pray for them as well. But God, now we come to our city. And oh God, this place that we call home, this place that is called Beaumont, Texas. We come right now, Lord, thanking you for a place that we can call home. God, as we come into this meeting, as we come to this joyous occasion, Lord, we ask that you will continue to bless our city council. Bless those that are in leadership. Bless those, God, that the people voted to represent every part of the city of Beaumont. Father, we thank you right now for every ward, everyone that's represented, every council member here today. We pray for them, God. We pray for their family. We pray, oh God, that you would continue to hold them, keep them, and oh God, give them the wisdom, the courage, and the knowledge to lead us where you would have us to go. Now, God, we come, oh Lord, in the name of our Lord and Savior, the Father of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God, we come right now just to celebrate right now, oh God, a new mayor. We come to celebrate a new beginning. Lord, we thank you for the previous administration was so full and just blessed this city, God. But now, oh God, we have a new leader, and we thank you right now. Lord, you have ordained, and you said this, Lord, you said that if we acknowledge you in all of our ways, Lord, that you would direct our path. And God, all paths today are leading right here and right now. A day that you have made, a day that we've never seen before, and oh God, a day that we've looked forward to. A new day, a new beginning, and we thank you for it right now. Lord, as we bless your name, we thank you once again for all that you've done, for all that you're doing, but oh God, all that you're getting ready to do in this city. And we thank you right now. We join hands, we join hearts. Lord, we come together and we pray for our new mayor because, Lord, she has come to join us together. Bless her right now. Bless her family right now. Bless her husband. Bless her children, her children's children. Lord, all that support her right now. And we pray as we support this council, we support the mayor, we support our city, and we thank you right now. In the mighty name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, Father of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we thank you, and we bless you. Amen. Amen.
Okay. Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Colbert, and thank you, Chadlin. May we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Ames.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Felshaw.
Present.
Councilmember Dorio.
Here.
Councilmember Getz.
Present.
Councilmember Turner.
Here.
Councilmember Samuel.
Present.
And Councilmember Neal.
Present.
Thank you.
As we are now in session, if you'll please make sure that your cell phones are silenced, we would appreciate it. And today, we do have the oath of office for our new mayor, and if you will take us, please, City Manager, into the runoff election information.
Mayor and Council, an ordinance canvassing the returns of the runoff election of the City of Beaumont held on the 19th day of June 2021 for the purpose of electing a mayor, providing for severability, and providing for repeal. Whereas the City Council of the City of Beaumont duly called the runoff election to be held on the 19th of June 2021, and the election returns of the votes cast in said election were canvassed for the following official for the office of mayor, and whereas after duly canvassing said returns, the City Council finds that the votes cast at said election for the candidates for said office are as follows. Roy West, 8,063 votes, or 48.17%. Robin Donata Mouton, 8,676 votes, or 51.83%. The returns of said runoff city election are hereby declared to have been set out herein, and Robin Donata Mouton was elected to the respective positions subject to the taking of the oath of office as provided by the laws of the state of Texas. The administration recommends approval.
Thank you. Council, you have heard the reading of this item. May I have a motion, please?
Move to approve. Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor of approval of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Now we will have the administration of the oath of office. Immediately following that, we will have a reception, and then the council will reconvene. So if you are here after the oath of office, we will have a short reception. And I'll leave that time frame up to the new mayor. First decision, there you go. Judge Lively, Mayor-elect Mouton.
I, Robin Mouton,
I, Robin Mouton,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the duties of the office of mayor
the duties of the office of mayor
of the state of Texas
of the state of Texas
and will to the best of my ability
and will to the best of my ability
preserve,
preserve,
protect,
protect,
and defend
and defend
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States and of this state.
of the United States and this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right. You're official. Congrats. Oh, my pleasure.
Come up when you're ready, Mayor Mouton.
Ooh, look, I have all the guys helping me.
Somebody sit in it and then push it. You gotta sit in it, push away. You gonna try it, Randy? Now push it. Now push it. Oh, you already voted. We'll get you in the chair.
Oh, yeah. Sit up high.
Yeah.
I think it's sit up high. Well, let me start by acknowledging the goodness of God. And to say how grateful I am that He's brought me to this moment. I'd like to acknowledge my grandmother, who I've talked about in the newspaper quite often. She was an incredible woman. I had a strong mother, and I had a great, strong grandmother that could pray the heavens open. And I just want to say that I'm so grateful for this moment again. I'd like to acknowledge my incredible husband, Kenneth Mouton. Of 42 years, who has made so many sacrifices over the last few months, as well as my daughter Carmen and my son Julian, and my dad, Robert Donata Sr. My sister, Sharon Donata Durley, my brothers, Robert Donata Jr., Chester Donata, Ricky Donata, and a host of uncles, cousins, and one cousin in particular, Reverend John Coleman, who called and said he heard the voice of God that said, run for mayor, that you can do this and you'll win. I want to also thank all of my aunts and uncles for all of their love and their labor, and all of my neighbors and friends who came out to support this effort. I want to say a huge thank you to my Pastor Edison and First Lady Colbert, and to the body of Christ and all of the ministers and all that prayed for me during this journey throughout the city. To my union members, CWA, IBW, the Plumbers Local, firefighters, Local 399. I'm so grateful to all of you. Again, to all of my financial supporters, my phone callers, my door knockers, my street walkers. Sometimes there were people that just call and say, I'm just lifting you up to let you know that you can do this. To a wonderful friend that's the mayor of Live Oak, Texas, who came down, which is about 15 minutes from San Antonio, Mayor Mary Dennis. Now she can get some rest because I won't have to call at about 11 and 12 o'clock when I get in at night. All who worked tirelessly on my behalf and on the behalf of making sure that I got in this seat. I am truly, truly grateful to my incredible, incredible campaign manager, Gwen Scott Dalcor. Thank you so much. To my incredible team, God made us look like the army of Gideon. We had a core team of 5, and we tackled this city. An everyday core team of 5, but as you know, 5 is the number of grace, and God did give us grace. I want to thank each and everyone, certainly, that put in countless hours, and not to mention the time that we spent in the hot sun. And I think we all got a little more tan than we wanted to. But it's a team of people that endured hours from day in and day out during those 9 days of voting, and then to go back and have to do it all over again and start over with a runoff. And certainly, last but not least, I want to express my deepest appreciation to the citizens of this great city who saw fit to elect me to this seat. I'm grateful for your support, and for those who may not have chosen me, I will work just as hard to earn your support. As many of you know, I ran a campaign on the basis of unifying our city and this council, and now the work begins. In the coming weeks, with the help of this great group of councilmen, we will begin the efforts to address some of the most pressing issues in our city. I met a lot of people while campaigning for mayor, and I want you to know I heard your voice. I heard your issues, and I want you to continue to hold not only me but everyone accountable to what we've pledged and said we would do. I also want to encourage all citizens to continue to voice your opinion and your concerns. Get involved and stay plugged in. Both the issues and as the progress begins, you'll see that we are working on your behalf. To our outgoing Mayor, Becky Ames, I wish you much success. Thank you. It was a wonderful 6 years working with you. I walked in here 6 years ago, not really knowing you, and I feel I have a friend now. You and Rodney, thank you. And finally, to every citizen of our beloved city, I'm deeply honored to represent the city as your 42nd mayor. Thank you. So at this time, Mr. City Manager, we may begin our meeting. I'm sorry, we're gonna go, I'm sorry.
Ready to get to work.
I'm ready to get to work. I'm sorry, I believe we're gonna recess. We're gonna go ahead and recess.
You want to do the comments now? Or?
Okay, we can.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead, and I'm gonna ask the council for comments.
Okay.
And, well, I guess I'll start with you, Mr. Manager.
Okay, I look at you, I see a rose between all these thorns is what I see. The administration and I thoroughly enjoyed working with you over the last 6 years, and we look forward to working with you now.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mayor Mouton. I'm just as happy as you. I'm about to bust up here. Really, man. I'm so happy for you. I'm very proud of you. I know you're a very hard-working young lady, and I'm ready to go to work with you. I was glad that I was able to step up. Hopefully, I could do, half as good as what you did when you was in Ward 4. But I'm ready for us to work together, all of us, the whole council, and like I said before, I want the whole city of Beaumont to be a part of Beaumont's success, not just us, everybody. And I'm ready to do that, and let's go.
Thank you, Chris.
Mayor Mouton, the citizens have spoken. You are our mayor, and I will support you. And if you succeed, that means the city of Beaumont succeeds. So I am wishing all the best and all the success for your leadership here on City Council.
Thank you.
Mayor Mouton, congratulations. You're only as strong as the supporting cast, and we, your supporting cast, we got your back. We're here to support you, we're here to encourage you, and we're here for you to make this city where we want it to be. So the citizens that voted, we appreciate you. Everyone appreciates you up here. To Mayor Becky Ames, thank you for your service. You're greatly appreciated. And Ms. Mouton, you made history. I can go home to my 4 beautiful daughters. I got 4 beautiful daughters that I can show this example to, like you, Sherazina Stevens, and I want them to know that they got the opportunity to hold prestigious positions such as you guys. So thank you. You did a great job, and we're here to help you.
I've known you as Robin Mouton for the last 2 years, Councilwoman Mouton, and now I know you as Madam Mayor. The last 2 years, I've enjoyed serving with you. Anytime there's a change in leadership, there's always a fresh vision and new energy. And I know that this mayor will bring that to this council. And this council, I believe, will get behind you and do everything in their power to make that vision a success for the sake of our citizens. So God bless you. I look forward to it.
Thank you.
Well, Mayor, Madam Mayor, I now understand why I would see you and Mary going through the halls, wherever we were, working together. It paid off, Mary. And Reverend Coleman, thank you for the vision that you shared with her. I've been with Robin now from the beginning, and I know her to be a warrior. She will stand for what she feels is right, and I know we're going into some good places now for Beaumont.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say congratulations on the hard-fought win, and I look forward to working with you for the next 2 years to move Beaumont forward. I'd also like to say thank you to Mayor Ames for the 27 years of service that you've given Beaumont. So thank you.
I'll just say congratulations again. I've been saying it over and over and over again. And, you know, my door is always open to you. You've got my cell phone number, and that's the best number you can reach me by. So we're in this. You sat here for the last 6 years, but now you've gone to the top, to the throne. So just congratulations again. And I do want to say to your husband, we stood out on your driveway when you first announced, and he said, we're in it to win it. So he's now the new first gentleman. And congratulations to the mayor and her new adventures, and to Rodney along with her. Thank you.
Bart?
Congratulations, Mayor. Look forward to working with you going forward.
Thank you.
Mayor, congratulations. Enjoyed working with you these past 6 years, and look forward to great new things for the city of Beaumont. And we're here to support you.
Thank you, Chris.
Just like to echo my congratulations to you. It was a great campaign for you, and I've known you for 6 years now, and I'm looking forward to see what you can do as mayor now.
Thank you.
Mayor Mouton, just want to tell you congratulations. I've worked with you for 6 years, and I look forward to working with you for another 6, 10, 15, however long.
Thank you.
But congratulations.
Thank you. Well, that concludes our comment section.
Mayor, I think we have one more presentation.
Okay.
Judge Paul.
It's certainly a pleasure for me to be here today. Ms. Mouton, I think you called me and said, Judge Brown, can you help me? I said, no, the call is a little late. I'm already committed to one man with 1,000 pounds of energy, Mr. Proctor. I like your fight. You didn't give up. You said, I got another question. If I'm in a runoff, will you help me? I said, oh, yes. I got to help you if you're in a runoff. And I think you had a vision then, and you called me back. You said, well, don't tell me. You're in a runoff. Bring the sign, and let's put the sign up, and let's go to work. But I must say, this election made the old man feel very good. I've been in elections so many times. I voted at John's Library, and I say again, this election was very special. I met Mr. Chris and also Brian Johnson and Kevin Reese. And when I walked out the booth and got outside, I met those three young men, and they were going at it each other. They were telling everybody, don't vote for this guy, don't vote for this guy, vote for me. And when I walked out, they said, Judge, who did you vote for? I said, I voted for the winner. Well, who was that? All of you are winners. And I like the atmosphere that they were going. The best word they were creating is competition. And they were going at it. The election, I thought, turned out very good. I received the Beaumont Enterprise, and I must say the Beaumont Enterprise is getting better, because the brothers stopped getting the Enterprise long ago. They just didn't treat us right. But I hope that the Donatas, the Moutons, they bought all of the papers. But I get the paper every day, so I had to have these pictures laminated for you. And everything that you did, I will give this to you. And then the picture, I like what you said, you're going to solve all the problems. Provided for me, Paul Brown, 53 years of my anniversary married to my wife. And I've been doing business for 53 years with that black businessman. I advise everybody, do business with black folks. say to you, Mrs. Mouton, from Calvin Williams and his wife. He was the first African American elected to the city council about 52 years ago. He's under some health issues now, but he talked to me last Thursday. He said, tell her I wish her well. The road's going to be tough, but I know that she can handle it. So from all of us in this community, and also I want to leave you a picture of one young man who's been in the struggle. I just call them the drum majors for justice. These are the people, Elmo Willard, Reverend Daniels, and all the others, and our dear friend who just passed a month ago, Paul Jones. I want to ask you to give this to you. And the last thing I would like to say, I pass these around to some of you. You receive this. I mean this from my heart. I don't play the game at all. It simply says we must stop asking others, black folks, to do for us what God has given us the ability to do for ourselves. We got work to do now. Each one, reach one, teach one. We don't have time to play games. Look at the audience. It's 99 and 10% black folks. She's going to take care of everybody. Also, those people that work so hard, the people that work so hard to get you here, I want to congratulate them. The lady who worked before, Bobby Patterson, one that just retired, Carolyn Guidry, and another young man, Howard Trahan, Ava Graves, Irma Lynn, and all those people that work with you are people that's been at this for a long time. We love you. My wife tell you the hello. She got a knee problem. I can't perform surgery, but they'll do that later. But thank you and Godspeed, and we wish you well.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Good afternoon, Mayor Mouton. Congratulations on your greatest honor and achievement. To all of council and all our distinguished and honorable mentions in the audience today. My name is Danielle Nettles, and on behalf of the Nettles family and also the Linebarger family, we just wanted to wish you a special congratulations. One, we have a plaque for you, and it says, congratulations, Robin Donata Mouton, on becoming the first African-American woman to achieve the historical honor of being the mayor of the city of Beaumont. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to recess out to the foyer for a reception. Thank you.
Mayor Mouton, how long do you want to recess for the reception?
To 2:30.
2:30.
2:30. Robin. reconvene the meeting. Mr. Manager, may I have the reading of the first item, please?
Okay, Mayor, Council, you'll consider the consent agenda first, please.
May we have the reading of the consent agenda?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but we need to do public comments for the consent agenda or anything on the agenda.
Okay. Public comments?
And we don't have any.
Okay. May we have the reading of the consent agenda?
Mayor and Council, we'd recommend that you approve the consent agenda at one time.
I move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Someone second?
Yes, I did. I second.
Okay.
It's been moved in second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The vote is unanimous.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor and Council, item number 3 is an ordinance entitled an ordinance granting a specific use permit to allow a church in an RCRH Residential Conservation Revitalization Historic District for property located at 2453 Broadway Street in the city of Beaumont, Jefferson County, Texas. Weldine Smith is requesting the specific use permit at a joint public hearing held on June the 21st. The Planning Commission recommended 6-0 to approve the request with the following conditions. Number 1, update the site plan to show the proposed parking layout with dimensions to meet city requirements. And number 2, restripe the parking at the rear of the building. The administration recommends approval with the same 2 conditions.
With the reading, may I have? I'm so sorry.
I so move to approve item number 3
I second.
with the conditions.
With the conditions? Any discussion?
I have a question, Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Manager, when we were at the planning and zoning, this specific item was one of the ones that was voted on, and it was said that the applicant does not own this property. I guess my question is, or 2 questions. 1, does the owner of the property have to sign off on this? And 2, how long does this stand for?
I may defer that to the city attorney from a legal perspective.
The specific use permit is the permit of the applicant,
Okay.
not necessarily the property owner. It's to the use of the property.
And how long does that stand for?
Until either it expires, they abandon the use, or it continues.
All right, thank you.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passed. May I have the reading of the next item, please?
Item number 4 is to consider authorizing the city manager to execute change order number 1, accept maintenance and authorize a final payment to Excavation and Construction for the concrete pavement repair citywide project. Back in October of 2018, the city council awarded a contract to Excavation and Construction in the amount of $3,656,485.47 for the project. Proposed change order number 1 is a reduction of $280,109.12 and is required to deduct scheduled repairs that were either completed by our Streets and Drainage Division or were better suited for asphalt work. Change order number 1 will also adjust the estimated quantities in the contract to reflect the actual quantities used. If approved, would result in a final contract amount of $3,376,376.35. The project has been inspected by the Engineering Division, found to be complete in accordance with the provisions, and the administration recommends approval.
May I have a motion, please?
Mayor, I also move item number 4. Acceptance.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Do we have,
Uh,
I'm sorry,
question.
do we have a discussion?
Is this already completed, Mr. Manager, or is this ongoing?
It's completed.
I have a question too. Mr. Manager, is it any kind of way that some of the things that have been completed, maybe we can get it on the website or we can get it updated so the citizens can know our status with the work that we have completed?
Yes.
Yeah, this particular contract is doing small section repairs, so it's very difficult for us to put all of the individual locations for this type of contract. We do have all of the road rehab with the blocks that are done on there, as well as the ones that are going to be done under the street rehab 3, which is on there. We just don't do the point repairs because you're talking about a panel here and 2 panels there on an entire road on this particular contract.
A panel may be like a concrete section
From
between
seam to
us
seam
right
on,
now.
right.
And they'll go and do that where needed on a certain roadway. If there's any large sections, we could put that on the web, and we're trying to update that on a regular basis.
Right.
Councilmember Gates.
Okay, so I saw recently, and I compliment your department on putting this on the website, how we have potholes that are being addressed, those that have been done. Would this be that much different from potholes, or, I mean, this is actually bigger than potholes?
Well, the potholes are a little easier because the citizen calls in a specific address that goes into the city work system, and then that address is geo-verified, and so it automatically maps. Now, we can, if y'all want, go and break down every single panel. It's just a lot of individual pieces through there, but we can do a list if y'all want all the locations. We also do this work within streets and drainage, where we'll do asphalt patches and panel concrete patches and curb repair, and again, in pieces as needed on individual streets, not the entirety of a street.
I don't want to make a lot of work for you guys that necessarily. I do think that citizens do need a way to have accountability as to what streets are being addressed, and you know, so yeah, this isn't something that burns bright for me, but I do think that anything that we can do to let citizens follow progress being made is positive.
I agree.
Any other discussion? Sure.
So, Mr. Manager, this money is already, that amount of the has it already been paid back, and they paid, and they gotta give us back the difference since it didn't cost as much, or are we just gonna pay them a smaller amount?
It's figured out, and then you're authorizing that final payment today. So if you approve it, the reduction will be made on the overall contract, and then this $176,418.82 will be paid as a final payment to the contractor.
The way that works is the contract's awarded to the contractor, and then as the work is completed, they create, they put pay requests in, and so we only pay them for the work completed. We're just not doing quite as much as originally specified under this.
So the final payment isn't as much.
It'll close it out with that remaining money left on the contract.
Any other discussion?
Mayor, I'm sorry, I missed the motion and second on this item.
Randy?
And then,
Okay, thank you.
all in favor? Anyone opposed? The motion is moved. May I have the reading of the next item, please?
Mayor and Council, item number 5 is to consider authorizing the city manager to award a contract to Infrastructure Engineering and Construction LLC of Houston for the Pine Street Water Treatment Plant electrical building improvements. The project will provide flood mitigation for the main electrical building and generator building at the water treatment plant, and provide elevated improvements to the existing diesel tank. The contract is in the amount of $522,464. A total of 260 calendar days are allocated for the completion of the project. There are FEMA funds approved for this project in the amount of a little over almost $392,000. And then the $130,616 will be paid for out of the capital program. The administration recommends approval.
May I have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I have a question. Mr. Manager, can you kind of explain to the citizens that may be listening at home or in the audience exactly how this would improve flood mediation?
Okay, so during Harvey, water got very close, and correct me, Barb, very close to that main electrical building, generator building, and staff's been working diligently. A lot of key staff is in the audience today, but it was a team effort, and they were tasked, and they did it themselves as well, but let's prioritize what improvements we can make to harden these facilities or to mitigate the risk in the future of this type of flooding. And so a lot of work went into this, and working with FEMA to get approval for these funds. And as you can see, it takes sometimes 3+ years to get there, but it's a coordinated effort between Bart and Mike Harris and a lot of staff out here in the audience and our finance department. And these are needed improvements, and we think will make a difference. You want to add to that?
During Harvey, like Kyle said, the water got very close, and we underwent an effort to sandbag the electrical building and protect the switch gear. What this is going to do is put a permanent flood wall in place for that building so that you don't have to do an impromptu sandbagging. And it's also going to provide for an access road that's raised to allow us to get to that building even if the flood waters get that high again.
Any other discussion? May I have a motion, please?
So move for approval.
Second.
I'm sorry, we already did a motion with Councilmember Neal and a second by Councilmember Samuel.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carried. Reading of the next item, please.
Okay, Mayor and Council, we have 3 discussion items today. The first item is to review and discuss compensation for our civilian employees. PowerPoint we'll walk through. I'll let you read that. For those that may not be able to view their television set or maybe listening online, I'll read some of this so they know what we're proposing. So our civilian employees, and those are employees other than police officers and firefighters, last received a 3% increase in October of 2019, and we are proposing a one-time payment to all of our full-time civilian employees, including the appointed officials, of 2% of their base wages. However, employees making less than $50,000 per year will receive $1,000. Now, they don't actually receive $1,000. It's $1,000 less. We all have to pay our payroll taxes and our contribution towards our pension, and there may be some other related deductions that all of our employees are accustomed to paying. But if the council approves this, you may have an employee that makes $25,000 or $30,000. However, under this plan, they would receive the $1,000 less the necessary deductions. So the estimated cost, you can see what that would be to each fund. It depends on where our employees work, and I'll let you absorb that. This would be paid for, in a lot of cases, the different departments and funds come in under budget. So if that were not the case, our fund balances are very healthy and can afford the payments, with the exception of the fleet fund. a transfer to the fleet fund may be necessary towards the end of this fiscal year. And with 2 new council members, I can tell you that we, on a routine basis, I'd say pretty much every year, come to the council towards the end of the fiscal year. The fiscal year ends September the 30th, and we come to you and ask you to approve transfers to maybe certain funds to shore them up, or if we went over on the expenditure side, you know, the charter has stipulations that you have to follow, and it takes council action to do so. So that's something that, again, we do pretty much every September, sometimes in the middle of the year even, but we do it on a routine basis. So if that fleet fund needs additional funds, it'll be part of that process later this fiscal year. And according to U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, all items increased 5.6% for the 12 months ending in May. This is the greatest increase since 2008. So we think our employees deserve this, and we're in a position to do it from a financial standpoint. I'll answer any questions you have. If not, I plan to put this on the agenda within the next 2 weeks and have you consider it.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion?
Question, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. So if you add all these up, you come up with somewhere around 1.1 million. Check me on my math. How many employees are we talking about?
There's approximately 1,240 on the payroll.
Thank you.
Just for the civilians, though, the full-time amount for this one-time payment would probably affect 770 employees.
Yes, it's minus, we have 260 police officers, not that we're fully staffed, and about 234 firefighters, not fully staffed. So again, these are just full-time employees, minus police and fire. What number did you come up with?
770.
Okay. Thank you for.
Mr. Manager, I have a question. When was the last time our employees got a cost of living raise?
October 2019.
Thank you.
I have one other question. Typically, we do this in October whenever the new budget comes out, correct? So what's the reason for trying to do it now?
We wanted to do it October of 2020, but we were in a precarious situation, as you know, from a financial standpoint with the pandemic, and we wanted to look at this on a weekly basis, but for sure a monthly basis, that you get that financial report. So as things have gotten better, even from a sales tax standpoint, we felt financially this is a good time to do it. Again, we wish we could have done it sooner, but we were trying to be as prudent as possible, and that's the reason. Now we're still going to consider hopefully doing something October the 1st of this year as a part of maybe the fiscal year 22 budget, maybe something that's built in for our employees. At the same time, we're just not there yet. We'll have a lot better information towards the end of July.
You answered my question. I was wondering, would still be a chance they'd be getting a cost of living increase this coming October?
We hope to, and we plan to, especially with items increasing like you're seeing up there. We're just not at a point where we can make that recommendation at this time.
So basically, this is like a bonus?
I'd call it compensation, a one-time payment, which councils have approved historically. In the last 20 years, I know they have a number of times. You try to do things that are built in, cost of living adjustment, and it varies every year. Sometimes it's been 2%, up to 4%. In this case, we feel, again, with a lot of uncertainties, not with where we are financially, just with our revenue streams, it's better to do a one-time payment at this time and hopefully do something October the 1st that's built in.
I have a question. I went back and researched numbers since 2011, and I realized it's been averaged roughly about 2%. Is our budget, with it being pretty comfortable, what's the most that can actually be allowed for the one-time cost of living?
It's as much as the council wants to approve.
All right, and with that being said, honestly, I look at it as the cost of living is actually going up, and I'm kind of looking at it from the aspects of the people who are actually making under that $40,000 to $50,000 rate. I think it's pretty tough for those guys to go out there and work hard every day, and I think it's a good thing that we are doing it as a city. But in the past, have we ever explored options of going over 4%? You say just only as comfortable as the council.
There's been individuals get over 4%. I don't recall, do you, Mr. Cooper or Ms. Broussard? Todd, jump in. I don't recall an across the board of greater than 4%. We'd have to go back and do some research, but for sure 4%. A lot of years 2, 3. There's been years 0. You know, it just depends year to year where we are financially. Again, we should know a lot more towards the end of July. And when the appraised values maybe are settled a little bit, and then we'll come back to you and hopefully make a recommendation for October the 1st. But at this time, can't make that recommendation. We don't know.
And one more question. Can you kind of explain the difference between the cost of living and the actual raise, you know, just for people who may not know the difference?
Well, historically, and I'm going back 30 years, almost 30 years, our employees receive cost of living adjustments based a lot of times on what do the statistics show, but more importantly, what can we afford from year to year based on our revenue streams. So the cost of living, I mean, those statistics are based on prices of food, energy, new and used cars, medical services, a lot of different cost, right, goes into what those statistics and how they're, meaning the price of goods and services, are they increasing, decreasing, and how much, which affects all of us, right? What we pay at the grocery store and when we pay for gas or electricity. So we look at that because that's a good gauge, but more importantly, again, is what can we afford, what can the taxpayers afford, and that's done on an annual basis. But to answer your question, I'd say 95+% of the time it's a cost of living adjustment. We do not, we don't sit down with 10 people in a room like some companies and, you know, 80% are gonna get an increase and maybe 10 or 20, the bottom portion, no increase. Or it's hard to sit around and say you're gonna get 6%, you're gonna get 4, and you're gonna get 3. We don't do that. And it works for us.
Have you ever done like raise performance based? Based on recommendations of supervisors, department heads, stuff like that.
You have a lot of arbitrary decisions, a lot of politics comes into play. I don't think that'd work well in the fire department. You know, where you'd sit down. And so the way we do it, the cost of living adjustment's cleaner. It works. It's worked for us for a long time, and I see no reason to change it.
Councilmember.
Yes, for historically, we've done cost of living raises. And this time, we're talking about, because they haven't had any type of increase over the past, since 2018, we're talking about giving them lump sum payment. And we will look at where we are coming into October, into our next budget year. We can then look at the cost of living raises as we've done historically.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's basically what we're doing, making up for the employees. They've not received increased compensation in recent years. So those that are below 50,000, we're giving them a one-time $1,000 payment, as well as those that are over 50,000, we're giving them the 2% of their base wage. Correct? And in October, we can then reconsider and see where we are financially as a whole, that we can then come on, do an increase in pay by percentage.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for the new council members, just so they understand where they can find some of this other information, in the budget, and every year you adopt it, there's a rate schedule in there that breaks it down by individual category for all 1,200 employees, and on most of them, it has the rates there for you.
Okay. Councilman Gibbs.
Okay, so this proposal includes a proposed 2% increase for all city employees, which I completely support, but also for appointed officials. That would be for yourself, Mr. Manager, and the city attorney, and the city clerk, and the city magistrate. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I've said before, and I haven't changed my position on this, I think performance evaluations need to be done before consideration of, and I don't care if you call it a cost of living allowance or if you call it a raise. If you end up with more money in your check, it's a raise. And so, at least as to the appointed officials, I think that we should have performance evaluations before we consider doing this. That's my position on that. I understand you don't like performance evaluations, Mr. Manager.
Never said that before.
I think you just did. You said you didn't think they worked well. And, the problem with not doing performance evaluations, and I'm talking now about city employees, you have everybody being given across the board the same amount. And, I understand politics can come into play in that. I understand that it's difficult to administer, but there's also a disincentive for anybody to, do anything more than the minimum expected if you know that no matter if you just do the very bare bones or if you are really out there busting your tail, you're going to get the same thing as anybody else. So I know in the private sector it's different. Maybe this wouldn't work in the public sector, but I do think we should at least acknowledge that, if everybody's going to get the same, it does serve as a disincentive, in my view, to do more than you have to do. It's my opinion.
Councilmember Samuel.
Well, I've heard this proposal before. I think at this time we're trying to let our employees know that we appreciate the work that's been done in recent years since they've not gotten a raise. And I do understand there are some that want to make this political and deal with it from that perspective, but we can deal with that in October whether this council wants to move forward with having the performance evaluations. But right now we're talking about the average city employee. And I understand how there might be some that believe our city employees are not worthy of the compensation because of their productivity. However, I believe majority of our city employees are very good employees. They've done what they're supposed to do above and beyond through the pandemic, through the storms, and they've not received compensation for that. I believe this is an opportunity for us to show our employees how we appreciate their work. And if there are some that feels differently, come October when we get ready to deal with the compensation, we can deal with that at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember
I
Neal.
just want to add that there is an incentive for the employees to do better. Per the rate schedule, there's multiple different tiers per category, so that they're inside that one position. There is multiple different ways they can go up.
I'd like to add to that.
From a
I think
promotion standpoint.
Councilmember
Yes.
Neal's exactly right. And if you're a laborer, let's say in the water department, and you want to be an equipment operator, if you work hard, you can move up. You're an equipment operator, you want to be a crew leader, you can move up, make more pay. If you're a crew leader and you want to be a general foreman, I've seen people jump up 2 spots because they work hard, and we just had that happen in the water department within the last couple of weeks. It happens all the time. So if you work hard, you have more opportunities, you're going to make more money. So
But
I'm
there's
glad,
also-
Councilmember Neal, you brought that.
There's also multiple different levels of labor.
Yes.
Absolutely. Councilmember Turner.
Have we actually did like a study and looked at numbers that cities in comparable to our size are paying people that are making like streets in that department. I'm looking at specifically at the people who are making under $50,000 a year. That's kind of what I'm focused on. The people, because we're saying cost of living, and I know things are getting higher, and you know salaries aren't. So I'm looking at, compared to other cities our size, how are our citizens, our employees for the city of Beaumont getting paid, the ones that are making under that $50,000 a year threshold?
We make those comparisons all the time throughout the year. We have to be competitive because we're competing with other area cities, other departments. So we look at it all the time and make adjustments when needed.
Councilmember Getz.
I want to be clear. I agree that the employees, the civilian employees that work for the city of Beaumont do deserve to have an increase. Nothing political about that. And I don't want there to be any misunderstanding about that. My point is that for the highly compensated appointed officials, I do not believe that they should receive a 2% bonus without having a performance evaluation. That's what I'm focusing on there, and I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, I would just like to say I think it's a great opportunity to show that our employees that we appreciate their work, especially since they have not had any type of compensation during the pandemic. And with everything being, the prices of everything has gone up. And I think it's just a great opportunity for us as a council to show our employees that we appreciate them and that we have not forgotten about them. And I would also like to know when can we have this on the agenda?
I'd say the next meeting. We're not planning to have one on July the 6th, but we'll plan on July the 13th.
Okay. And so we can look forward to seeing this on the agenda to vote on it, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So,
Councilmember Jones.
after we vote on it, will it be the next payday? Or if it's approved, it'll show up, when will it show up in the employee's check?
We can either do it in the middle of a pay period or the start of a new one, but within, say, 2 weeks, the employees would receive a check.
And I just wanted to clarify my earlier statement. I believe like Alderman or Councilman Samuel, the city employees do an outstanding job, and they all deserve this raise right here. As far as the performance enhanced, I was just questioning the performance base. Just seeing if some of them do a little more than others, and I'll see if they will be rewarded for that. That's what I meant by that. But I think all of them do a good job, and they all can use this money.
Thank you. Any other?
One last question. To my understanding, you said it wouldn't be fire and police. What about transportation?
All employees except firefighters or police officers, because we have contracts with them, and so they're covered by their contracts and have received increases over the last 2 years.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gibbs. Were you talking about transit workers or transport? Because they're different too.
Transit workers and transportation. I want to know about both, just for clarity.
So
Transit
with this wouldn't work.
The bus drivers work for a company called First Transit, which is a private company that manages our transit system. So the bus drivers, and I understand in the public it's hard to follow this, but the bus drivers do not work for the city of Beaumont. They are not the city of Beaumont's employees. They work for a private company called First Transit. They're paid by that company. Their benefits are provided by that company. It gets complicated. The city of Beaumont, in turn, pays First Transit to operate the system. And so we're basically reimbursing them for their operating costs. But no, they would not be covered by this plan. They don't work for the city of Beaumont. And you're prohibited from getting involved in those negotiations with them because they have a union and they're represented by that union.
So the city pays First Transit the agreed upon amount in the contract, and they decide how much they pay their employees.
Right. So hopefully, if they negotiate a new deal, the city has to approve it, which they haven't done so. We have not seen what that proposal is. They haven't brought it to us yet. They bring it to us when they have an agreed upon contract. And then it's the federal government pays for a good portion of the system, most of it. When I say most of it, the greatest majority. State of Texas, fare box revenue. The city pays between 40 to 50% of the operating cost on an annual basis.
Hopefully we can get to this MER in the future. I don't want to get too much off base, but I would like to be educated more about how that works and why it's a third party.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, Mayor and Council, the next discussion item, I think Councilmember Turner, when he was first elected, brought this to me, and it's something that we're interested in. And so the item is to review and discuss retrofitting an existing vehicle to be used for high water rescue. And Todd Semino, our Chief Financial Officer, will lead the discussion.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Just want to take a few minutes to give you some details and some options about our high water rescue vehicles. So what you're seeing on this first slide here is just one of over 20 dump trucks that the city owns and operates. These trucks work in various departments throughout the city, but they're used primarily during storm events and flooding events as our high water rescue vehicles. Currently, these vehicles can ride in 2 to 2.5 feet of water or 30 inches. And as you can see on the back of this same vehicle, the cargo area is very high. And so what has to happen when we go and rescue a citizen is that they have to use a ladder to get into this cargo area. And if they're not able to use a ladder, then our employees have to assist them and carry them into that cargo area and bring them to safety, which can be, it could be prone to causing injuries for our employees and the citizen. So in order to improve the efficiency and the safety of our high water rescue operations, we're looking at this type of vehicle that you're looking at here. This vehicle can drive through a little over 4 feet of water or close to 50 inches. And as you can see better on this slide, there is a lift gate to securely bring our citizens to safety on the back of this cargo bed, and also there's a tarp there to keep them dry and safe from the weather. So as I mentioned, there's some options we were looking at. One option is to purchase one of these vehicles like you're looking at here directly from a vendor. That cost would be a little over $200,000. It's important to note that these vehicles would not be new. These vehicles are usually refurbished military vehicles. The other option is that we can take that existing dump truck that you saw on the first and second slide and do some conversions and make it look pretty much just like this vehicle. We can do that by doing about $30,000 worth of the conversion in-house, and then send that vehicle off to the manufacturer of a company like this that does these type of vehicles, and they would do an additional approximately $40,000 of work. So for the price of $70,000, we could convert one of our existing reserve dump trucks into a high water rescue vehicle such as this. And as far as funding this, we believe that FEMA will offer funding for this for us. We have a program that we opt into with Hurricane Harvey. It's called a DAC program. It's direct administration of cost. So basically how that works is however many dollars FEMA has obligated to the city, and right now I believe for Hurricane Harvey it's about $75 million. We're expected to go to $85 million. We get 4 to 5% of that obligated cost to use to reimburse ourselves for administrative cost or mitigation cost or emergency training. So that would give us possibly $3.4 to $4.2 million to work with as far as mitigation projects or training or just reimbursing ourselves. That's a pilot program. We're learning more about it as we go each day, so nothing's guaranteed till you get it. But if we don't secure the use of FEMA funds, we have plenty of fund balance in our general fund to cover the cost of this type of conversion. So with me today, Earl White, the fire chief, is here. Tim Oknashek, the emergency management coordinator, is here, and Jeff Harville, our fleet manager, is here in case you have any questions.
Okay, who's first? Councilmember Samuel.
Have we checked to see if there are any type of retrofits that we would be able to use on existing equipment that can be added when needed, or would it have to be something that's done and that vehicle would be strictly used for high water rescue?
Did you look into that, Jeff? Do you want to speak to that? So Jeff Harville, for those watching in the audience, he's the city's fleet manager. He can speak to that.
Yeah, because it sounded as if we could have some substantial savings by retrofitting the existing vehicles. But my question would be, would that vehicle then be strictly used for, would it have to be strictly used for high water rescue, or would you be able to retrofit it in the event we see storms coming, and then we could convert several vehicles to be retrofitted to do rescue?
Well, as you see in this picture that's here with this rear lift gate that would be able to lift wheelchair personnel, and then there's ladders on the side that people can climb in. Once all that is on the rear, it's there and it's non-removable. So the vehicle in the first couple pictures that they showed is a vehicle that is in our replacement schedule that was due in replacement of FY21. So with that, that vehicle would have just gone to auction. But instead, we come up with the idea of adding these things to it so that we can make it a high water vehicle and repurposing that vehicle for our need in our eyes at Fleet, instead of having to go out and spend the $210,000 for the vehicle as that sits right now. We could retrofit this vehicle for about $70,000.
Okay, so were we looking at one or two vehicles?
We have one. That one that you saw right now
is about to go into
right. That would go to auction, but we can hold it back, and we will constantly be on the lookout for other vehicles that we could possibly do this to. For sure, there's one. I know there's a need for possibly three, but to say that they're on ground right now, they're not.
Mm-hmm. But on the ground right now, we can always use the vehicles as they are. Correct. But it does create somewhat of a hazard if used, and they have to lift the individual into it, because I've been in those trucks several times.
We've used the dump trucks for Harvey and Imelda, and they worked, but we have the possible means to do this to make it a little easier, especially for wheelchair personnel that can be lifted into the truck.
So my question would be, if we were to retrofit one of the vehicles, the one that's about to go to auction, what do you think would be the drawback of retrofitting an existing vehicle versus purchase of another vehicle?
Well, these vehicles and military vehicles are made, they're all four-wheel or six-wheel drive, as this is. This would be a regular rear-wheel drive, two-wheel drive vehicle. But with that, every vehicle has its limitations. Just because it's four-wheel drive doesn't mean you can take it off-roading in 5 foot of water, because you really don't know what you're driving through. With the vehicle we propose using, like I said, everything has its limitations. You need to know the depth of water you're going through. You need to make sure your road is there. You're not turning across a ditch, those type things. So you got to pay attention to your water levels. Chief White and I have talked about the use of fire equipment in high water, and we are all fully aware of the limitations to these vehicles. So I believe it would be the financial advantage of it for one, but I don't think that if you looked at 3 of these, you're looking at $600,000+ for 3 trucks. As we get them due to replacement schedules that we typically do each year, first one would be 70, next year might be 80, as inflation goes, but we'll just have to see what comes up.
I'd like to add something to that. just to add on to that, like I said, these vehicles that you're looking at here are used, and we have to follow certain procurement guidelines by the state, and one of them is making sure we're getting best value. We usually don't try to buy used equipment or vehicles because it's hard to compare values. In other words, I can go and look at 2 brand new F-150s, exact same in model, and I can compare those because they have the same hours on the engine, which is basically 0, no miles, and the same equipment. When you get to trying to compare used vehicles, it's almost impossible to find 2 vehicles with the same equipment, same hours on the engine, same miles. It's not saying you can't determine best value, but it's basically supporting it for an audit, so it makes it harder.
I had a question about the number of vehicles, but I think they've answered that.
All right. Well, Kyle and staff, first and foremost, thank you for actually going out and looking at the initiative. I think with the amount of storms we have and the things we have been through, I definitely think it's a good idea, and I am in support of it. My question was, for people with disabilities, and that 4 feet compared to 2 feet, I think that's a big difference. And when you said with $70,000, we can refurbish one of our trucks we already have, would it still have that ramp on there for $70,000 to get someone with disabilities up and down?
So we would spend the $30,000 you talked about in our facility. We need to do a few things to it to make sure that it's prepped and ready to receive what the vendor would put on it, which are the canvas cover, the ramp on the back, the closing gates, safety gates in the back, the ladders on the side, and some more items that are in the quote that I had sent. It lists everything that they would do. Some lighting and passenger lighting inside, emergency lighting on the outside, paint it, to where it looks like an emergency vehicle. So all that would be done by matter of fact, this same company that builds that one would do this retrofit to it. So that and I opted to go that so that the people that are expert in retrofitting this equipment and using that equipment for these purposes, they do it instead of us. I don't doubt our ability, but I'd rather people that are specialized in that do it.
Councilmember Gibbs.
I definitely think we need to have some high water rescue vehicles. Most of us are familiar with attempts to rescue people using fire trucks in the past, where we flooded out the fire trucks and the damage was severe. One thing that I have a question about, though, I'm recalling that we had some surplus military vehicles that were going to be able to be provided to us, I think, for free in the past, and that idea was rejected, if I recall correctly, because of the cost of maintenance of those vehicles. What has changed on that?
Well, those vehicles are still out there. We can get enrolled in we're actually enrolled in that program to be able to look at those vehicles and see what's out there. The difference is I have this one on ground now. Now that's something we can look at, and through Todd's and the manager's guidance on those, we can gladly look at those and see where we want to go, but I have one on hand now.
I understand, and you were ready to take it to auction. So if we're going to auction off something, is that because we think it's at the end of its useful life and it's no longer reliable, or what was the reasoning for that?
Well, it is the truck that you saw is a debris truck. It's not exactly a dump truck. So when it's in the Parks Department, they'll go out and trim up a tree or bushes, whatever, in a park, load it into that, take it, and then dump it at the landfill or wherever their dump site is. We've had some problems with hydraulics, the hydraulic pump, the lift cylinder, and the mechanisms that allow that to be dumped. So we have them a truck that we're just waiting to come in now, but we went ahead and took this truck a little early from them, which of course we asked their permission. We took the truck sooner in hopes of doing this, and we won't be using the dump mechanisms on it once we retrofit it.
So your big problem with the truck that you're proposing to be used for this purpose and retrofitted has to do with the hydraulics and dumping, which of course would not be an issue in a high water rescue. I saw recently that the city of Orange, and maybe another city around here as well, were the recipients of some high water rescue vehicles from the military. Did you see that as well?
Yes, it was that truck right there.
It was this truck.
One like it, yes.
Okay. And were they able to get this truck at no cost? Or
No, matter of fact, I spoke to the general manager of the general truck body who this truck is from, and they said that they went through their whole purchasing process, got the approval through council. They bought 2 of them, actually. I don't exactly know what they paid for them, but they made the approval, got the money paid for it, and was done.
if I remember reading that article correctly, they were able to get these trucks without cost through a grant. And I guess my question is, why can't we do the same?
I don't know how they obtained it.
And like I said, there is the possibility of us using the DAC program within FEMA to pay for these vehicles. We just need to pursue that.
I understand that. I just don't know why we're not doing the same thing other cities are, applying for these vehicles through grants. I just don't have an answer to that question.
I think the council's fully aware of how successful Tim Machnicek and his staff and Todd Semino and his staff have been securing grants over the last 2 years that we brought to y'all for approval. There's been matches on some of them, no match on others, so I don't want the public to think that we're not out there looking every day for grant opportunities. Until Councilmember Turner brought this forward, I've never heard a council member say it was a priority of the high rescue vehicles. So again, staff's done a great job of securing grant funds for many, many years, and I don't want that to go unnoticed.
And I'm not in any way, Mr. Manager, saying that we haven't. I'm talking about this specific grant opportunity, you know, and I am in no way throwing shade at Captain Machnicek or your staff for the grants that they have been able to obtain. But I do recall talking about the need to have a high water rescue vehicle when we lost those fire trucks in the past. And I'm glad, Councilmember Turner, that you're bringing this forward again, because we don't need that to happen. So, you know, we need it either way. I'm just saying, if there's a grant opportunity to fund this type of vehicle and we could use more than one, I think we should pursue it.
Thank you, Councilmember Gett. Councilmember.
Yes, I'm not a mechanic, but just curious, on these type of vehicles, can you do a high water air intake snorkel kit to permit you to go through higher water than you typically would?
Well, that's what we'll have to do.
You will have a snorkel kit on it?
Right.
Okay.
Right. We've looked at where the intake is on it. We'll need to raise it up. Where our fuel tank, fuel port is, we'll need to raise it up.
Okay.
Being an older vehicle, it doesn't take DEF, which is an advantage. It's got a CAT engine in it, which they're durable engines, so that's to an advantage. And like I said, we'll remove all the hydraulic systems, so we won't have to worry about those getting contaminated. Also, like in the differentials, the air breathers on those, you have to raise those levels up.
So, and the word high water vehicle, yeah, the snorkel kit is a part of that definition.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Samuel.
Yes, and the bed of the vehicle will be retrofitted also. We won't use the hydraulics, but the bed itself will be retrofitted to receive passengers.
Yes. It is very close to the cab, so part of what our funding will do is scoot the cab away, the bed away from the cab, so that we can have an egress out the front of the vehicle if need be. And then with the tarps that are made, they have a emergency Velcro cover that's in the top, so if there was a rollover, they could get out that way. You gotta have different ways to get back out of it in case of, something happens to it. We'll do that. We're gonna put like the spray in bed liner in the back, so that, people just don't get dirty in it. There'll be lighting in it. There'll be seats put in it.
Okay.
There'll be tie downs for wheelchairs put in it.
Yes.
There you go. That was my next one.
So with
That's
the
my
ramp,
question.
as you can see, there's tie downs on the ramp to secure them to the ramp when they go up, and then there'll be about 6 positions for them to tie down on the side as well, once they get in.
And just for curiosity's sake, about how deep was the water that was on Beaufort, where the vehicle, we lost the vehicle down there? Or how deep is the water in the underpass, so folks would have an idea of how deep?
Where's Beaufort?
He's not from here. He's in the military.
Where's Beaufort? Just give me an idea.
In the south end of Beaumont, right next to the port, running down the side of the port.
Oh, I don't know in that area. I don't know.
That could have been very deep. Buford goes, low there, and that's the problem with evaluating the high water, because take the underpasses on MLK, they were filled all the way to the traffic signal height, which I think is like 17 feet. So it just really depends. You go into those low valleys, and no high water vehicle is going to get through that. They've still got to make sure they have some restraint on where they go.
Okay.
I have a question. How many passengers will be able to fit, and how many wheelchairs will be able?
We'll fit it. I believe in the kit it's either for 5 or 6, because they install the tie downs into the floor, so it's for 5 or 6 wheelchairs. And then the length of our bed, honestly I couldn't tell you, but it'll be more than what that can hold for sure. That's probably about a 12 to 14 foot bed. The one we're doing is about a 20-foot bed.
Oh, great.
There'll be a lot of places for people to sit, and depending on, I would imagine they wouldn't let people ride standing up, so I don't know, probably 20 to 26 people.
Okay, and so as the trucks are no longer in use on the yard, then they can automatically be retrofit rather than going to auction?
If it's a high enough truck, which this one is, yes, we could use it for that.
We just have to meet all the standards.
Right. Just so happens we happen to be replacing that vehicle for the FY21, so actually my shop operations supervisor come up with the idea of using it, so I was like, man, yeah, let's present it. So just so happens we have a truck in that height category.
Excellent idea, excellent savings.
Right.
Thank you. Councilman Duria.
So what is y'all recommendation? Do you want to go with the new trucks? Do you want to retrofit? And how many of them do we want to start off with if we decide to do it?
Yeah, so I believe our recommendation is to do the retrofit for the $70,000. And it'd be a process going forward if council wants to continue to do this with, like you said, as the vehicles come off the yard and are subject to auction.
And once you get the truck and decide that you're gonna retrofit it, what's the timeline? How long would it take from the time you decide I'm gonna retrofit this truck until it's usable in high water?
One second, let me see what the quote says. It doesn't give a turnaround time on it. But after we spend probably 30 days on it, I would imagine them at 60 days. That's just a guess. I don't honestly know. I would say probably 3 months before we'd be able to have it. So
Need to get on it.
Yeah, if there's a consensus by the council today, then we'll move forward.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, y'all. I think we have our marching orders. I didn't know, now that we're almost over, but if you want to explain a little more about DAC funds, because, one council member made reference to the city of Orange. These funds are grant funds, okay? They're state funds. What Orange did, staff just let me know, is they did secure some funds from the general land office, okay? Where we made application for the pump station, ironically. Okay? And then they're using, it says reserves, donations, and, reserves in the Orange Fire Department, what I saw, and donations, and again, the state funds. So explain to them what the DAC funds and where that money comes from, what group.
Yeah, exactly. So all of this is resulting from Hurricane Harvey, and part of what we can get reimbursed for is what they call direct administrative cost. So that would be the cost of like my staff, maybe some emergency management staff, of basically tracking all these costs, organizing them, submitting them to FEMA for reimbursement, going to all these weekly meetings that we have every single week with FEMA. We could track all those costs and get reimbursed 100% for that. But they presented us with a pilot program that says, look, rather than tracking all your costs, you know, day to day and submitting those for reimbursement, we have this easier program for you where we will reimburse you 4 to 5% of all of your estimated claims that are approved to be paid by FEMA. So when we got approved to be reimbursed just on the Riverfront Park alone, I think it was over $46 million. We're like, we're going to take advantage of this pilot program because there's no way we're probably going to spend even $1 million of, you know, staff time going to meetings, even though it could be years, going to meetings and, you know, working with FEMA to get reimbursed. So again, like I said, so this program reimburses up to 4%, possibly 5% of the claims that are approved by FEMA to be reimbursed to the city. And like I said, right now we're at $75 million. We expect another $10 million of claims to be approved. So under that math scenario, we would be eligible to receive $3.4 to $4.2 million to basically reimburse ourselves, and whatever's left over, we can use it for mitigation efforts on future storms or emergency management training. And I don't know, I haven't reached out to Orange, but they could have been using the same program to get what they got.
Any other discussion?
Okay, we'll move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Bart, before you come forward, the next item, number 8, is to review and discuss water and sewer infrastructure and related projects. Mayor, thank goodness you served for 6 years. If a new mayor were coming in cold, this would be a lot of hot topics on here today or with this one. But so let's talk about the water system, which is water and sewer, is almost $54 million budget this fiscal year. $54 million. And I'll tell you that the staff, a lot of them here again, do an excellent job every day, and the workers out in the elements during the heat right now. In the wintertime, they're out there every day, right? And they are fixing water lines and sewer lines, and that's a tough job. And they do it and make it look easy, and we kind of take it for granted, right? When we, you know, turn on the faucet in the morning or take a shower. So what are people talking about right now a lot? Brown water, brownish water. No one likes brownish water coming out of their tap or their shower, okay? I don't know of a city in America, I don't know of, Bart found a video from Singapore that doesn't have brownish water from time to time. What you want to do is not have much of it. You're never going to eliminate it, but you surely don't want it again often. Last week, we had the high one day was 66 calls for brownish water. This is records of stats for 4 days last week. We track it every day. We track sewer stoppages, water line breaks, what we're repairing on a daily basis. So the high last week was 66 calls, and then the low last week was 15 calls. And we know not everyone's going to call 311 or report brown water. I mean, we recognize that. The public needs to understand we have 42,000 plus customers. So what I've seen has changed more than anything is social media. People can talk about something, doesn't have to be accurate. They can share it across a number of different spectrums. Doesn't mean that it's not important, because I started off by telling you it is. All of us have had brown water or shades of different discolored water at our house, probably at some point. You know, while you've lived there, I know a lot of us have. It happens. It happens in this building. So I've asked Bart Barkowiak, who's our Public Works Director, Mike Harris on the front row again, who's over water and sewer operations, to try to find an expert out there. And let's review, could be a company, could be an individual. Let's find someone who's an expert that can come in and do some consulting work for us and just look at what we're doing and how can we do better. We can always do better. You know, so find that expert. They're in the process of doing that, and then we'll go from there. But staff is prepared today to talk about what we do in the water department on a daily basis, what projects are underway that you've approved. The council has approved a lot of work, water and sewer work, over the last 1 to 2 years, more than I've seen. So that's a good thing, and the citizens need to know that. And our key staff is here, and I encourage you to ask any question you want to. Anything that you think or something you're hearing out there, go ahead and ask it. Let's talk about it. We're prepared to do that today, and Bart's going to come forward and kind of walk you through again what we're doing at this time. But we want to be able to answer any questions you hear from citizens sometimes that we don't. So I'd encourage you again to ask the tough questions. Let's get it out there, and we're going to try to even do. We can do a better job of trying to push information of what we're working on a daily basis. Again, those key projects that are under construction, key projects we've completed, both on the water side and the sewer side. We need to communicate that better. Just know in the world we live in, and y'all know this, I mean, if you watch a certain news station and you may not read a certain paper, or you're not on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or whatever, some people are off the grid. We all know people in here that don't really look at any media, you know, so they're not going to be aware of some of the things we're working on. So, Bart, if you'll come forward, I just wanted to make that introduction and tell you, we recognize people are talking about the discolored water. We get it, and we're going to try to do better of having as little of it as possible, just knowing that it's. Let me finish with this. When you have breaks in the system, you are going to have discolored water. I don't care where you live in America. People that we work with in these fields, and when we go to conferences and so forth, they all deal with this to certain degrees. Every city deals with this. So when you have water breaks, it happens. When you go test fire hydrants, it happens. I think sometimes we have maybe, I don't know if we have more or less, depends on where you live, but you know, we do have a lot of manganese and minerals in the water. Most of it right now, 100% of it right now, is from the Neches River. Before the storm, we were getting, say, 70% out of the Neches River and 30% from the wells in Lumberton, north of Lumberton, what we call Loeb. So it's a complicated system. Again, let's listen to what they have to say, but then please ask any questions you have.
I have a question. Well, with the brown water, is it a maintenance issue? Is it a maintenance issue? And why does some cities have more problems than other cities? And what can we do to create a project, a timeline, to look at it, at the overall problem of the brown water, so that we can get it fixed?
To some extent, you could classify it as somewhat of a maintenance issue from the standpoint of flushing. We do have a flushing program. Mike Harris, who's director over water sewer operations, and along with our engineering staff, is working on a directional flushing program to put in place. And the purpose of the flushing or the directional flushing is to get those mineral sediments out of the pipe system, because what's happening is our water naturally has manganese and iron in it. As the water ages in the system, those sediments deposit and they'll gather at valve locations, they'll gather at the bottom of pipes. When you get a pressure change in the system, it stirs up those sediments. So that's where, when I showed the video last week, they had talked about water line breaks, hydrant testing, or really just opening a hydrant, period. If it's a fire or something along those lines, you're changing the flow in the system. So if you think about taking maybe a glass of water with a little bit of sand or something at the bottom of that that's sitting there, and the water's clear, and then you shake it, and then it stirs it up and becomes cloudy. That's basically what you're doing in that water system with those sediments. It's sitting, not coloring the water at all, and when you change the flow in the system, it stirs it up. So the only way to really get rid of it is to get those sediments out of the piping. Our challenge is we have a lot of piping within the city. So miles, hundreds and hundreds of miles of piping out of the figure in the slideshow. So we just have to be able to flush all of that out, or the really bad locations, as best we can.
So, do we have, okay, when you go in and you flush, I understand anytime you interrupt the flow of the water, of course, sediments from the bottom are going to come up. So, we're talking metal pipes.
There's a lot of pipes in the system. Tina, could you turn it on? I'm just, there's 30 slides here. Since we're asking questions, I'm just going to bounce to the slide that has that information. So basically here you can see we have 877 miles of pipe in the system. The sizes range from 2 inches to 48 inches in diameter, and those pipe materials vary. It includes cast iron, transite, HDPE, PVC, steel, and bar wrap cylinder or concrete cylinder pipe. So you've got a variety of different pipes in the system. Some of that's based on the size of the pipe. Some of that's based on the age and what was in common use at the time it was put in.
Okay, do we have, but what is our plan to change out, like, the old iron pipes to PVC? Because we're constantly changing out.
Correct.
To PVC.
And some of that's to PVC, and some of that would go back with a steel or a concrete pipe. It depends on the size of the line as to what you would do. Is there a particular size? Micah's getting into your area on the pipe sizes.
Normally your average size as far as your distribution system, as far as distribution lines, go up to a 12-inch. When we replace new lines today in-house with 12-inch, we usually go with the HDPE pipe, the high-density polyethylene pipe. It's a fused pipe that fuses together, comes in 40-foot runs. Basically it welds, so it's one solid pipe. It eliminates the joint leakage and possibility of ground shear, where the PVC pipe, the transite pipe, cast iron, with the ground we have in Southeast Texas, with the constant wet, dry, the ground shifts, and it causes a lot of shear breaks, where the line actually shifts and breaks. The HDPE pipe we use, it's pretty flexible, and it takes care of a lot of that ground shift. And that usually goes up to, like I said, about a 12-inch. Now, when you start getting into more of the transmission lines, the larger 24, the 42, the 48, you move more into a ductile iron pipe. And we do have some of the larger transmission lines that were put in the past, 60s, 70s. That's this bar wrapped concrete cylinder pipe, or it's called Gifford Hill piping. It's basically a steel pipe wrapped in concrete. It's specialized pipe. When we do have to go out and work on this line, we have to get a specialized contractor to come in and work on it. One of the questions that have brought up in the past on Folsom Street, there was a Gifford Hill line, it broke. We had to leave the line, we had to let it run for about a week because we were waiting on the contractor for Gifford Hill to come in and do the repair. We don't usually put this Gifford Hill pipe back in place today because it's just so much of a headache of having to do the maintenance on it. Everything, like I said, we pretty much go to today, the distribution is the HDPE. And new subdivisions where the contractor's doing it, it's usually PVC. So, but also to kind of answer your question about the cast iron pipes or the steel pipes with the discolored water, they will tend to have the discolored water a little more than the other pipes. But because of the fact that the discolored water is caused by the manganese and the iron that's in the water that settles out, water age is more of a factor into the discoloration of the water than actually the pipe material. Once the water ages, that's whenever these minerals start oxidizing and start turning back to the brown color.
Okay, doesn't film exist?
The biofilm?
Yes.
I think we already talked about that. That's what we did when we did our free chlorine, we swapped over to free chlorine. Or if you want to speak to it, or I can, or.
So basically, typically we disinfect the water with a mixture of ammonia and chlorine or chloramines. It's a real good option for people that are in areas that have warmer water because the chloramines tend to hold in the system for long periods of time in warm weather. So that's why chloramines are suggested for treatment. However, the longer you run chloramines in the system, you can build up some harmless bacteria or biofilm in the system, and that film can react with the chloraminated water, and it can cause what it's called nitrification, which starts eating the chlorine residual in the water. So that's why we did the free chlorine burn here just a few weeks back. That free chlorine will kill that bacteria in the system, and then once that's cleared out, then we convert it back to the chloramines for long-term treatment.
One other question. Can you explain to the citizens here and that's watching, whenever the water hydrants are running, just what that process consists of?
That's the flushing. I mean, if we go out and we're flushing the system due to a water line break, we'll flush around that break, or if we get discolored water calls, then we'll open those hydrants, and that's what we're doing is we're running the water out of the system and we're clearing those sediments that cause the color out. And that's why you'll see them running for days sometimes, as we're just making sure all of it is out of the system.
Thank you.
Are you doing you gonna do a presentation, or is open the floor to ask questions? I just want to make sure. Yeah.
It's up to the council, but I don't think you want him to go through 30 slides. So I would encourage y'all to ask all your questions, and then they can answer them, because I think, we've got work to do upstairs, and it's up to y'all though, but 30 slides is a lot.
Mr. Harris?
Yeah, one other thing I want to say about the flushing on the fire hydrants, also as we talked about with the water age causing the minerals to oxidize, by opening the hydrants, we're pulling fresh water into that system, into that area as well. So that helps with the discoloration.
I will show this on the discolored water. This is a map of the city, and the red dots are water quality calls that came in. I believe it was from the 14th through the 28th on the range, but it was over the period we were having the complaint. So I know some of the comments I'd gotten were, what area of town was the discolored water? Was it mainly in the west end? Was it mainly? No, it was everywhere. I mean, as you can see from the map, it was everywhere. And then I also wanted to show the call volume. So you can see the pure numbers on the left will show you numbers of calls per day. And then they're charted. And what I wanted to point out was that starting on the 7th, that's kind of normal activity. You'll see a few calls up and down during the week, and that may be due to a water line break or something in the area going on, and we'll get a call for water quality. And this is, I keep saying water quality because in the system, when you call 311, if you have a problem with your water, it's listed as a water quality call. Now, that could be odor, or it could be color, or it could be a variety of things. But in this case, when all the calls started rolling in, the predominant amount of them was discolored water. The hydrant testing that got initiated by the fire department, and this is not a knock on the fire department, they're just the ones that do this testing program. Anybody coming and opening the hydrants, a large number could cause the same stir-up. That started on the 14th, so you can see that the calls from the 14th climb, and on the 18th of June is when Mike had called Earl White, the fire chief, and talked about pausing that hydrant testing program. So you can see once we paused the program, our call volumes started dropping in the system. The other point is that we switched from the free chlorine burn to chloramine, or added the ammonia for chloramines. We did that on the 21st. That's that second small peak you see, and from that point on, it was a steady decrease down, and we got all the color out of the system to where in the last 2 days I have charted is 3 and 2 calls a day. So we know that opening and shutting all those hydrants throughout the city just stirred up a large amount of the sediments. We had to flush them out of the water. We also believe that as we went to free chlorine, we were burning those bacteria out of the system. We accomplished that, and then once we had accomplished that fact, we started stripping deposited manganese in the system, is what we believe. And so we were actually adding some more color in as that free chlorine was stripping that manganese that was deposited in various places in the system. And so we flipped back to the chloramines and cut that process out and cleared it out.
So is this how you have historically always handled it? And will it be a regular part of your of maintenance?
Handled what? The discolored water?
I mean, the way just flushing the pipes out. So just flushing it.
Yes.
Gets rid of the brown water?
Yes, it gets the sediments out of the pipes. The goal, particularly with the directional flushing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, it's to aggressively get the sediments that have been deposited in the system out. The water as it's coming out of the plant is clear. So we need those sediments that have been deposited over time in the pipes out. And that's what the flushing is designed to do.
I have a question. Last week, Mr. Mike, you said roughly 4 months ago we started the directional flushing in about 50 locations.
Yes, no, the directional flushing is separate from our normal weekly routine flushing. Our normal weekly routine flushing is about 50 locations throughout the city that we go flush at these points every week, along with our dead-end flushing every month. We've started into this directional flushing program, and just explain a little bit about what we do, what goes into the directional flushing. We take a section of the city where we have a high volume of discolored water calls. We track that through heat maps. We see where the hot spots are, okay? Then we devise a plan where we go through and we're able to isolate each section of water main. What our point is, or what we're hoping to do, is create a dead end water main where we can open a hydrant or flush out at the end at a high volume of flow, to pull all these sediments, pull all these deposits out of that main and flush it out. At the same time, pull more water in, fresh water. Once we're able to isolate that one particular section, get that flushed, we open it back up, we move down the line to the next section. We keep isolating each and every section by doing that. Some of the challenges we run into with doing this is valves, of course. We're looking at 3 sections coming up in the near future. We're going to do some directional flushing on. But I have to send crews out ahead to locate valves, operate valves, make sure the valves are where they are on the map, because it's so important we've got to get these lines isolated where we can actually get a good flush to pull the sediment out.
Yeah.
They're having, like I said, locate the valves. If the valve's not there, we're having to cut new valves in, put, chart it and all that on the maps. Once we get the section where they're done with all the valves, then we can come in and we can actually do the directional flushing. I kind of misspoke. Last week I said we did it around the Windsor area.
Mm-hmm.
I was wrong. It's Wellington.
Okay.
In the Wellington area, we've done it. We've done it Edson between Gladys and I believe it was Regina in the side streets there. We've done some directional flushing there. And also we've done some on West Lucas where we've had to go in, add some flush out, add some valves where we can isolate it and flush back both directions. We've had pretty good luck with it, and that's why we're continuing on moving forward with the directional flushing.
And Mr. Mike, that's what I was trying to get to. In the past, has the city, I understand we're trying to create the directional flushing plan. In the past, have the city had a directional flushing plan? And if we have, is it a reason we're kind of recreating it, or we stopped doing what we were doing originally in the past? Did we ever do it in the past, have a directional flushing plan?
Not that I'm aware of, no, that they haven't had one in the past. They did have some routine flushing in the past, but as far as an actual go out, isolate lines, things of that nature, like I said, I'm not aware of any directional flushing.
Yeah, TCEQ requires us to have a dead-end flushing
Yeah,
program.
dead-end flushing now is a different situation.
But that's different from directional.
Right.
Okay, so we were invited to ask hard questions, and following up on what Councilmember Turner just said, things that we hear, things that we are told. We are told that we used to have a directional flushing program in the past.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what we're told. If we did, there should be some records of it. There should be some indications of it. There should be some evidence of it that it was happening. You're saying that, you're not aware of it,
To my knowledge.
to your knowledge. I'm just saying that, well, I'll just put it out there. We are told that there was a directional flushing program up until about 2015, that it was discontinued for a couple of years thereafter, and during that time, the lack of having the directional flushing program caused a lot of sediment to accumulate in the lines, and that we're still suffering today from the effect of that, despite your best efforts, and I do believe you're using your best efforts. I commend you for your customer service friendly approach, your responsiveness, the transparency that you use. I commend both you and Bart for that. But if we had it in the past and we discontinued it, is that, and of course we had Harvey, which I am told caused lots of damage to our lines. So I'm just trying to get a fair understanding of how we got to where we seem to have, because we did not always, during the time that I've been on council, have the volume of brown water calls that we seem to be having now.
I could speak to the fact that from about 2009, 2010, up to about 2016, there was not a directional flushing program that I know of, because I was working at the water department at that particular point in time. I do know there was, like I said, routine flushing, but as far as the isolating of the mains and doing the the stripping of the water mains like we're talking about doing. To my knowledge, I was not aware of any of that taking place. About 2015, 2016, I had left and went to work at another city, another water department, and just recently come back at 2019.
It could have been taking place and you might not have known about it. Is that a
Could have
possibility?
been taking place and I might not have known about it, but
When did you start with water, Molly?
And you did flushing work, Mike.
I
You
did flushing work.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's what.
I'm saying.
Molly's been with water utilities
Yeah,
since
the
she
whole time.
started with the city. What year did you start?
I started with the city in 2010, and the previous managers were tasked, the previous operations managers were tasked with developing directional flushing programs, not outside of the routine flushing, but a true directional flushing program. Those programs were never developed. If they were not shared with the staff because we would have been involved in the preparation of that documentation. My group and I were never tasked with that work. So we did do a lot of routine flushing. We would chase water issues and handle the flushing. But a true directional flushing program, again, has always been a task and it's been a goal of previous managers, but a formal program has not been developed until recently.
Well, okay, so what I'm taking from Molly, your statement, from Mike, your statement, is that representations that there was a directional flushing program in the past that was discontinued are misrepresentations.
They are, and Councilman, if anything, I think it's a completely true statement that we have increased flushing in recent years. We have not decreased flushing. We have been constantly working to increase flushing within the city. So, I mean, we're certainly doing that.
Okay. Well, I encourage you, again, to continue with development of a directional flushing program because it does appear to be a good solution to the problem. You indicated that from what you've done recently. I understand the challenge that and the frustration that you must have trying to locate valves. I would think that valves should be on a map somewhere, and if that wasn't done in the past,
they're
then
frequently on the map. The problem is the map's not necessarily geolocated, or it could be buried. So then you got to find it.
Could have been removed in the past. No one took it off the map.
Okay.
I mean, there's challenges to it, but yes, the directional flushing, that is the most effective way to rid the system of brown water, and that's what we're moving towards every day. To get in that mode.
okay, got it.
Is it fair to say that the spike in complaints that we had around the 18th, I believe, is it fair to say that was as in the perfect storm, where you have the lobe station down, pressure's down, that clean water coming in is down, the Nature's River water coming in, which we know is brown to begin with, and then you have the hydrant testing, and then the chlorine conversion. So all of this stuff happens at one time, making it the perfect storm, so we see a spike in the complaints of brown water. Is it fair to say that? And if it is, in the future, can we plan better not to do all those things at one time, such as bring low back online, I understand, but
Right.
the chlorine conversion, take it away from the hydrant testing and so forth?
There's a couple of things that we can do. And ideally, and we've discussed this, we do need to do a free chlorine burn each year. The city had gotten away from that. It's an important part of the treatment process. But that really needs to happen in the spring, in about the March-April timeframe. Before we get into the warm weather, it's much more conducive to not having that manganese stripping and that kind of problems because the weather's not hot enough yet. But yet it's prior to the summer, and so it's in the right spot for the nitrification. The lobe system, we should be able to have it on. We're shooting for the week of July 12th. We do feel, and you can look at maps that show when we have lobe on, we tend to have fewer discolored water calls historically. We believe that's because we have a more even pressure in the system because we're sending water in on that north side and not just from the river. So it's a pressure difference when you have lobe off. And then we've also talked with Chief White, and we'll probably, when we resume the hydrant testing, after we get lobe up, we're not going to just have all 12 stations go out and start testing at one time. We're going to start with one district and then rotate around, and then that way Mike and his guys can help alleviate if we do get water stirred up. It will be in one area. We'll be able to flush more effectively, and we won't just have a problem everywhere at one time where we're overwhelmed.
And then I'm assuming when we pick that area, and this probably falls on city council, I'm assuming city hall, not you, but we could notify the citizens in that area that there is the possibility of discolored water coming over the next 30 days. Please know what it is, so they're anticipating it.
Correct.
And they're not so upset whenever they see it.
Correct. We'll get the press release this last time. It was intended to be out, as I understand it. It just missed by a day or so. So we'll make sure it gets out. We'll make sure it gets out, and we'll tell them which district we're testing.
Can it be sent out on the robocall? Like,
That's it. Yeah.
There you go.
that
Mayor?
would be better.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilman.
there are some citizens that are taking to getting test strips and publishing their results on social media and apparently trying to scare the bejesus out of other citizens as to saying their water is unsafe to drink. I've seen people posting that it's like Flint, Michigan. I've seen all kinds of stuff, and what I would really like to hear from you is reassurances that the water is safe to drink, and I drink it right out of the tap. You know, what you do at the water treatment plant is you kill the pathogens in the water, the things that can make people sick. Minerals can, of course, affect the color of the water, and there's also other chemicals in the water that are supposed to be within certain tolerances levels, and people say, well, this, aluminum is too high, or this is too high, or this is too low, and cyanidic acid is too high. I don't know how reliable these test strips are. I mean, I've got a swimming pool, and I just, when I test my water, well, I don't even test my water. I take it to the pool place to test it. But can you give some assurances about the safety of the water? Because the bottom line is that is the most important thing to our citizens, to make sure that the water is safe and that they can drink it.
Number one, we do a quality report each year, and these are going out now. If citizens haven't received it, they will receive it soon. But this has a full chart in there of everything that's in the water.
Thank you. Yeah, I saw this.
So when you talk about trace minerals, et cetera, that's all in this detailed report. We do test on a monthly basis. We test both for chlorine residuals throughout the city, and we also test for presence of bacteria, harmful bacteria throughout the city. And that's mandated by TCEQ. We have to publish our results on the state site. And we also test, of course, at the plant as we produce water about every 4 hours through each and every day, before it goes out. So all of those tests, even through the discolored water calls, even through the peak of the discolored water calls, we didn't have any bad test samples anywhere in the system that were a problem. The water in my cups from the city, it's tap water, I drink it. It was safe. It just had the presence of the minerals. Now, when you pull a sample inside a building, you're not just sampling the city water, you are also sampling the pipe system that's within the facility as well. And this probably gets into what's coming down the road that the federal government is going to start requiring with a greater amount of lead and copper sampling. It's going to require the city to actually test at the schools for within their buildings, and it's going to require us, I believe, to test in some older residential houses within the city, and that's going to be interesting because you get into privately owned plumbing systems at that point, and this is why the city and every city in the U.S. has residuals, chlorine residuals in the water, is because the water's safe as it goes out of the plant. It doesn't need that chlorine as it gets produced at the plant to be safe. It needs the chlorine residual in it to protect it against contamination as it transits through that distribution system, so it will remain safe. And so that's what those chloramines in the system is doing, is protecting you against problems that exist throughout those 877 miles of our pipe and everybody else's pipe within their buildings that water goes through.
Another complaint that I've heard, or concern that I've heard expressed, is that, well, yeah, y'all are testing, but you're testing it yourselves, and how can we trust somebody that's testing their own product? What about sending it out for an independent test? Can you address that?
We do test with our own lab. Our lab is certified. It's required to hold the standards, and we have to go through that certification process. And on top of that, I believe it's once a year TCQ comes in and tests themselves. What frequency is that, Dan? Every quarter. So TCQ will come in and test.
And don't we test for some other folks as well sometimes?
We did when we came up after the winter storm. We tested for other systems to let them meet the qualifications that come out of boil water notice. So we're a certified lab, on that. So.
And speaking to the concern you just said about having to go test at the private homeowner's property, and Mike, you know this because we've had constituents that have said, I've got brown water, and you get out there and they have a water heater that's rusted out, and it's it's not a city issue, it's an issue at their house. So to the citizens out there, if you have brown water, and you correct me if I'm wrong, yes, you should call it in, but you should probably also consider going to your neighbors and asking them on either side of you if they have brown water, because if their water is clear and your neighbor on the other side's water is clear, but your water is brown, it might be an issue on your own property. Is that fair?
Yes. One other thing too is what we look at with the discolored water cost. If you have a certain address, certain house, that calls frequently about having discolored water, and no one else in the neighborhood, no one else on the block, you're not receiving any calls from anyone else in the area, then that throws up a flag to us. Hey, there may be something going on in this house. And once that happens, then we're able to do a little more investigating with the homeowner. Hey, where do you find it? Is it more in the bathroom? Is it more in the sink? Is it cold water? Is it hot water? And usually we can get to the bottom of it and determine if it's on the citizen or not. That's it. So being able to chart where the calls come in, that helps us out a lot, especially with citizens as well.
And that's why, too, we ask that they turn on their cold water and let it run and see if it'll clear up. We don't want the hot water on because of the fact that you could be pulling sediments out of that water tank, that hot water heater. Because they'll build up in a water heater, particularly if it's very old, and you could be seeing that coloration from that water heater in the hot water, potentially.
I got a couple questions, Mayor.
Councilmember Neal.
Thank you. So when do we think we can expect to see some type of functional directional flushing plan?
Right now, I've had crews out in the Blarney, Galway area, checking valves, installing valves. Once we get through with that, I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks, we can start in that area doing the directional flushing. We're gonna move from there over to the Sherwood Woods area, above Gladys, below Gladys, that area. Of course, once this valve crews get through there, they've got to move in there and start locating valves and checking it in, make sure everything's accessible. Like I said, I'm hoping within a couple of weeks, we'll be able to get in that area and start doing the flushing after they get all the valves situated.
So you expecting by the end of the year, we can have something for the entire city?
Probably not. As you can see on that slide, we got 14,000 valves out there. For us to go through that area and try to find all 14,000 valves in 6 months' time, I don't think it's feasible. The hotspot areas, the areas where we do have the most discolored water, where we have the most sediment, yes, I'm hoping within the end of this year to really touch them areas and be able to see a difference in these areas with the directional flushing.
Okay. And that's why, too, we've got to resume the valve testing process. We had stopped during COVID, and part of the unfortunate problem why we stopped that is that testing the valves will stir up sediment and cause discolored water as well, but we have to have these valves functional in order to work on water lines, to isolate them for flushing. And so we plan to resume that valve testing program and just concentrate on flushing either side of that valve when we do exercise it. But if we don't do that, it's hard to get through 14,000 valves and make sure that they all work when you need them.
My next question, when is the load plant going to be back up and running?
We're shooting for the week of the 12th, July 12th.
Okay. What about the water tower that's down?
That will not be back up potentially until November due to the rafter deterioration. So we're waiting on, I think the longest timeline is the steel to come in to replace those rafters.
All right, and I guess my last one's more of a comment than anything, is just making sure we kind of stay on the gas, trying to get an expert down here to give us some additional help. I think that's a great idea that we could use.
Sure.
I have a question, Mayor. With the directional flushing and you saying the amount of valves we're going to have to actually look at, and I understand realistically the time frame, do you think overtime would be something that may be necessary to attack a problem like this? Because this is something I think every council member up here can relate to. Like, that's a consistent issue in the community. Do you think that would help, I wouldn't say expedite, but keep the pressure on the timeline?
Yes, and the reason I say this, yes and no, because, you know, we have limited amount of crews, okay? The crews that we have fix water mains, they're doing the flushing, they're doing the investigating, they're doing the valves assessment. So, yeah, you know, we try to juggle it all in, and we do work overtime to get everything juggled in what we have now. So, working additional overtime, you know, with the crews are there, the crews are working overtime, they're working the time. It's just getting the manpower to move forward on to that. That being said, we were talking yesterday, 3 months ago, we probably had somewhere around 69 to 70 water leaks, major leaks, no minor leaks, major leaks on the books. You know, that's how we had in the city. Day before yesterday, we had 8. The guys that actually worked it down, that had 8 actual minor water leaks is what we had on the books. So like I said, working the time, working it there, it's there. It's just getting the crews off of one thing onto another, you know, to be able to go and do it. So, does that answer your question? I mean,
It does. It kind of pushed me to,
overtime for them
yeah.
working on valves. I mean, it's more or less getting the crews, getting the people, not necessarily getting the time.
So it's possible that you may need more staff and manpower to correct this problem.
No, it's not going to correct the problem. You're just going to correct, you'll have less discoloration. It's not going away. Again, he's just trying to go to the hotspot areas and check all the valves in that area and do the directional flushing in that area. So, yes, we can have less discolored water. Just know it's not going away, and you're not going to be able to go check 14,000 valves. I mean, you could possibly contract out some of it, but then our staff knows better where they are than anyone else, and they're updating these maps and using GIS, and there's a lot to it, but, I mean, you'd have to, I don't know what your end game is and if you tried to go get to the 14,000 valves quicker. I mean, we're gonna get there eventually, but
Well, and we don't want to tackle all of the valves at once any more than we wanted all the fire hydrants turned on and off at one time either, because every valve we go in and exercise is going to stir up sediment as we go through that process. So we have to make sure we're careful to flush on either side. So we're going to have to go through it methodically so we don't cause our own problems as we work the system.
And that's why we're taking it as sections.
Yeah.
You know, knowing this section we're gonna do here, we're gonna flush, we're gonna directional flush, so we can go in and work the valves in that section. If it stirs up the sediment, we're fixing to flush it, period, so.
that makes sense. I mean, if you went and did it all over town, you'd have the same problem you did with the fire hydrants a couple weeks ago. So I think we're doing it the right way, and we'll eventually get there, but it wouldn't make sense to go do it all at one time.
On the positive aspect, with the consultant coming in, I think there can be an additional help. I just know myself, I can only speak for myself personally. You know, it's kind of rough when you're in the grocery store with your kids and, you know, citizens come up to you and they want to know what's going on with the brown water. So now that we're on topic with this, I want to make sure we do everything we can to ensure that I can give them adequate answers when I'm asked. So that's why I'm asking some of the questions I'm asking.
Yeah, we put that video from Singapore online. We have questions that y'all have answers to, I believe, online.
Yes, sir.
You know, so it's out there. We just need to better direct them where to go. And then get that, especially with 2 new council members, get that in your hands too. But they have questions of potential problems and answers online right now.
Yes, it's on the website.
So we need maybe give that to the council members. So
Yeah.
what are the routine questions and what are the good answers?
Thank you.
Questions that you get, we all get in the grocery store. So we need to know the answers to them.
So this is the water and sewer services page. You can see we have the pipe bursting map, active and recent pipe bursting projects posted. We posted the link to the video, and there's an FAQ section, and it does talk about discolored water as well on there. And I think to Kyle's point earlier, I think we can get better. There's always room for improvement, but it's also important to understand that manganese and iron exists in the water supply. We cannot get away from it entirely. There's not any solution that is out there that would allow us to completely eradicate any possibility of discolored water. It's just to minimize it and deal with it rapidly when it occurs in areas, and not create a situation where we have, you know, self-inflicted injury by stirring it all up everywhere at once.
And one last thing for clarification. We said the load plant, is that the one that's located is that Lumberton? How long was this plant down? And you're saying it's gonna be back up and going hopefully around July 12th, but how long was this load plant down?
We took it down last summer because of the low chlorine residuals. This is a map of the city as a whole, and it shows the Loeb water plant north of the city. Those yellow dots are the wells that feed into Loeb. The Buns Canal intake is the actual intake off of the river. That pulls water into a canal that then runs to that Lawson pump station, and then that pumps raw water into Pine Street, which is the other blue dot there that's marked. And then all those kind of reddish dots with the yellow center distributed around the city are the elevated and ground storage tanks.
To answer your question, we're pumping water from 2 sources, right? Harvey knocked out our pumping capabilities at both locations. So we eventually did get low back up after a while, but we continued to have problems, and staff felt we were better off pumping water off from the Natchez River until we made needed improvements, which y'all approved, to make the needed repairs at Loeb. So we can start sending water from Loeb here in the middle of July. We'll continue. They monitor it every day. Staff goes out there. We'll continue to check it, but it was driven by Harvey, and that's why the council, y'all approved 6-1 to make application for funding for a new pump station. Now that new pump station would be located out there near Collier's Ferry, just closer to Pine Street, get it away from the river. Because both these locations had, like, would you say 8 to 10 feet of water?
I think there was more at Loeb. I think it was, what, 8 feet?
That it knocked out our electrical systems, our pumping capabilities, and so it just takes a while to get to where we need to be. And quite frankly, most of the time you could do the repairs if you engineer it right and the construction much quicker than, say, because it's taken us, when the storm was in 2017, much quicker if we did it all ourselves. But when you're working with the federal government and the state, and they're going to pay, for example, let's say 75% of the cost in some cases. It depends. Some are 90%, some are 75%. But you know, you're at their mercy, right? Because you're trying to get them to fund most of the project, but you're going to follow all their rules, and it takes a long time.
And there was a lot of work at Loeb that really needed to be done. There's the chlorinating system. 8 feet of water on everything was bad, but a lot of the stuff out at Loeb was older as well. So we've replaced the entire chlorinator system out at Loeb, and we added booster pumps. In order to feed chlorine into the system, you have to have pressure to pull that chlorine feed in. So without the booster pumps, it relied on enough city water pressure there to really be able to start Loeb up, which put us in a bind. So we added the booster pumps so that we're able to reliably and easily start and stop as needed. So that's a starting point. However, we've still got the entire ammonia system that we're trying to replace and fix. And then the steel and concrete tanks, when TCQ went through, there were required repairs on those that needed to be done, plus they needed to be cleaned. There were a number of valves. There were SCADA PLC controllers that were underwater that weren't operating anymore. So we need to fix all of that so when we flip Loeb back on, we can operate reliably. Even when we do flip it on in July, and should be reliable at that point, we've still got more Harvey work to finish. So we still have the high service pump motor starter replacement. There's 4 high service pumps that pump water out of there. They were all damaged during Harvey. Right now we only have 2 starters for 4 motors. So we have to pick which starter on which motor. We can't run all 4 at the same time. So we still have that outstanding. The generator is still not going to be in until January. So that's got to be put into place. And then we've got the well 2 starter. Even though it's working, FEMA's going to replace it because it was all underwater as well and corroded from the storm. So all of that's got to get done. Plus, remember, we shut it down because we had low chlorine residuals. It was recommended through a long water quality study that we add caustic to bring the pH up at Loeb, and we're working on adding, that's that chemical storage improvements, caustic storage and injection. That'll be up, was November time frame. And so there's still, even once we bring it up in July, we've got all of these projects stacked to fix just at Loeb.
And we want to thank all of you because y'all have supported these projects and approved the contracts to get it done. And so that's the only way we're moving forward with all of these items because staff's worked on them, but you've approved.
That's it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That concludes our general session of the meeting. And at this time, we'll go to public comments.
Nicholas Hunger, 9155 Mapes, Beaumont, Texas.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, City Council. Congratulations, Mayor Mouton.
Thank you.
I'm Nick Hunter. I don't know if I've never met you, but I've met several people up here. I talked to AJ today. I went to high school with Taylor. I was fighting alongside Mike when we were trying to get BISD under wraps. And I've been presented with an opportunity an incredible opportunity to build a business. I've been running my own social media production, video production services. We do social media management, depositions, videos, and I've been doing that all by myself for the last 2 years. Now, I've been blessed enough to have enough work to be able to spread it out and hire some more people. I've been having trouble finding like reliable people. I got Brian here today. Just I need somebody to hold a camera for me. So I'm auditioning him as a cameraman. But the opportunity that I've been presented is outside of Beaumont. Now, I'm here because Beaumont made me who I am. I've been here since 1990. We moved here when I was 8 years old. I started second grade at Amelia Elementary. Graduated from Westbrook High School, and then spent another 7 years at Lamar. So I've been in Beaumont my entire life, aside from a couple years that I lived in Mid-County while I was in college. And the reason why I made sure to come back to Beaumont is because of the community, because of all the Little League coaches that I had that helped me overcome adversity on the field to be able to do that same thing in business today. From the preachers that would mentor me when I was angry about things that I didn't understand because I didn't understand them, right? So all these people have been here to help me become who I am, and I want to make sure that kids, my kids, future kids, all kids can say that here in Beaumont. All of my friends that I had in high school, for the most part, most of them moved away because they didn't want to raise their families here in Beaumont. And I understand that because I'm in a position right now to walk away from Beaumont and raise my family somewhere else and have a really nice life. But I've been called, every day I wake up and I ask God to lead my actions. I don't ask him for anything else. I just ask him to lead my actions because I know I've only got a little bit of time left, but this time last year, I went through something, my wife and I went through something that no parent should ever have to go through. And at that moment, I realized I wasn't my best person. I wasn't my best self. I blamed myself for the tragedy that my family had to overcome. And I still to this day can't wake up and not think about what has happened to my family. And from that point, my faith pulled me in closer and stronger, and I just started talking to God every day, just waking up, God, please guide my action. And he's told me that I need to build something here in Beaumont before I ever leave, because this city built me. I've started a nonprofit foundation called I Can, because at that moment, I couldn't. But I said, I can. It's caring about neighbors in Beaumont. I'm here to support you and the rest of you guys on council because we got to fight to make Beaumont better. So I'm excited about the direction that is to come. It's a turning point in our city. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming down the pipes. We should start by designing a new logo for the city.
Well, Nicholas, I just want to say thank you for coming forward. Call the office. I would love to sit down and talk to you. And I know you don't know me. Your mother is Deborah Roach.
Everybody knows me as Deborah's son. Yes, ma'am. I'm always going to be Deborah's baby.
Yeah, I knew you when she was carrying you. Thank you.
Ma'am. Thank you.
Addie Allen, 9695 Gross, Beaumont, Texas.
Good afternoon, new mayor. Congratulations
Thank you.
to Councilman Turner, to all of the councilmen that have been serving tiringly, and to the city manager and all others. I'm standing here, and I stand frequently because there are issues that I care about, and I thank you for the answer for the airport. In fact, one flew over at 3 o'clock this morning, but they didn't do the frequent like they have been. I don't know if it's the weather, but thank you for that. On the discussion item number 6, it talked about compensation for civilian and I'm wondering about civil service, the American Rescue Act. We got money from that particular grant, and I don't think that it said anything different whether it was civilian or whether it was civil service. And of course, if you're giving $1,000, I've been an employee of the city of Beaumont, grateful when I got a bonus, but if it's less than 1,000 and you're gonna take the taxes out, I would ask the council consider just a little bit more. Because in that Rescue Act, I'd like to see when that's gonna be on the agenda, because there are several things that address the employees, and happy employees make a happy city service personnel. Thank you for the water and sewer discussion today, because that's been an issue. And I see that this new council, I thank you. It seems like we were in the work session with you today, and information is so important. So thank you for your service, and it's just really interesting. I see a change already, and questions are good. But I want to ask you this. I noticed Houston went through Harvey, and they did an aggressive, although there's more employees, aggressive movement where water accumulated and affected citizens. So I'm hoping, I don't know what the statistics are, where the city has done the movement of making sure that floods don't happen in the same place repeatedly. But hopefully, with the staff that the city has, even if they need more employees, consider that so we can get this done and we don't flood. And on the, I know that we talked about, and I still believe that we need an air horn. I know the past mayor was saying use your cell phones, but I know that it has happened. May I have one more minute? It has happened where we've had our media that goes down. So I hope that maybe we might look at that going into the hurricane season this time or in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Pharaoh Richard, 5275 Parkview Drive, Beaumont, Texas.
My name is Pharaoh Richard. I'm the owner of the House of Pearls for homeless women, the Cornerstone for homeless men, disabled veterans, and Second Chances for convicted felons. I stand before you today first to congratulate you, Mayor Robin Mouton, and I extend congratulations from Vice President Kamala Harris, who I attended the BET Awards with this past weekend in Los Angeles, California at the Microsoft Theater. She did say congratulations to you, because I know that was something you had mentioned. I'm briefly just here for one reason and for one reason only. My request before the council today is, after doing research about the property taxes here in Beaumont, I discovered that the property tax rate for most of the properties here is 1.59%. I'm here today to propose that the city council will allow me and my foundation and my partners to purchase Concord homes. It's to my understanding that the city was allocated a $12 million grant that they lost because of advocacy groups in Austin, Texas, who proposed that knocking down the property was some type of self-discrimination against lower socioeconomic groups. The property is just sitting there. It's the ideal property for me and my foundation because the majority of the homeless people here in Beaumont reside under the bridge, which is literally right down the street. After briefly going around the property, I've been in talks with people this past weekend in Los Angeles, California. I approached Magic Irvin Johnson, who helped me out before about 20 years ago in Los Angeles with a shelter for homeless teens in Hollywood, California. As I said before, the city was awarded a $12 million grant that was lost. And the purpose of the grant was to knock down the property and rebuild it. But the problem was the rebuilding would not be at 2020 Cottonwood. And that's where the issue came, meaning if the city, the people wanted the city to rebuild on the same land. And that's what I'm proposing, that we not rebuild, but that we repair and rehab the property. There's over 100 units. My proposal is that there will be low income, meaning whether we're charging them $1 a day, depending on their economic status, or $30 a day for $300 or whatever a month. The bottom line is gonna generate over $3 million a year for us. And I know that the Beaumont Housing Authority, which is a division of the City Council that was created in September of 1941, does have a tax exempt status. However, we are proposing not to have the tax exempt status, but to pay taxes at the 1.59%, which would generate $190,000 in property tax for the city at the rate of $12 million a year, if that is the value of the property determined at that value. So that's where I am today, and I'm hoping that you will lend me your ear. We're losing several homeless people on a daily basis. The hurricanes are coming, and I just want to be a light, and I'm hoping that you will help me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I have a question. Who are those properties still owned by BHA, and are they
We can't
occupied?
have that discussion. It's not a
I'm not.
posted item.
I just question: are they owned by BHA, and are they occupied?
Have that discussion.
They're unoccupied, they're permanently closed, but they are still owned by Beaumont Housing Authority,
Okay.
which I understand is a division of your council.
Tracy Bellard Orline, 6050 Chisholm Trail, Beaumont, Texas.
Okay. I've been doing this more often, but it still doesn't get any easier. But I appreciate the opportunity. I've been over there freezing, but I'm listening, and I wanted to offer perspective again on the compensation for the employees. And I understand everything that was said, but I want to offer that to show appreciation in the form of the right to get promoted doesn't cover everybody. You know, there are people like maybe me who may be very talented, but I don't like dealing with adults. That's why I deal with teenagers. So I may not get promoted. I may not want to get supervisor or whatever that may be in order to get a pay raise. But I may be the best employee that you have. And I would like, if I were, to be appreciated. That's the first part. Second part, he's gone, but somebody can tell him. They mentioned the trucks and being retrofitted for people in my possession. I heard him say tie downs. I just wanted someone to hear that there are other docking stations that will fit more than one type of chair. I'm a consultant with the state, and a lot of times these companies, they do it, but they don't know what we need. So I'm hoping if you guys do go that route, that you get someone that knows what we need. Even though those companies do that, they very rarely ask people like me what is best. I'm getting a van, and I just had to fight with the wheelchair people. They didn't know who they were messing with, but I won, by the way. But they were unaware of the other options. They told me, no ma'am, we can't do that. Yes, you can. Here's the proof. Now, everybody's not as brave as me, and they're not gonna fight. So I just wanted to put that out there. Even though those companies have the ability, they don't always know what we need. So I'm available if y'all, if I can help, because if you get a certain type of tie down, it will only tie down, it will only tie down a certain type of wheelchair, and then you have people in scooters
and other different ones, and there's like a docking station that maybe will cover 85% more than the regular townhouse.
Thank you, Ms. Antoine. Thank you.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to council member comments, and I will start on this end. Council member Neal.
No comment, Mayor.
Thank you. Council member?
No comment, Mayor.
No comment, Mayor.
Thank you.
No comment.
Council member Getz?
I want to congratulate Emily Wheeler and her staff for bringing the Air Force National Guard band into the Julie Rogers the Jefferson Theater last night. They gave a tremendous performance. It was a good crowd there, and we appreciate what they do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember
No
Durham?
comment, Mayor.
Thank you. City manager?
I know it's been a long meeting. I found, looking through some bookshelves, a book at home the other night. It's written by a guy named Ben Woodhead, who grew up in Beaumont, lived here, I don't know about his entire life, but he was a reporter at one time in a local newspaper, and he has a son that actually lives here and a daughter that still lives in Beaumont. This book was written in 1968. It's titled Beaumonter at Large. And for his family members that are still here, it's a very positive book, actually, and it's a great read. I just want to read something. He has his last chapter is called Mop Up, and this is like 3 to 4 pages from the end. I think you'll find this interesting because, again, very positive writer. I'm going to do this quickly. He said, "The thing that rather disturbs me about my hometown is its relative lack of unity where matters relating to the common good are concerned. Difference of opinion is healthy, but in our case, it often approaches deep-rooted acrimony." He goes on to say, "There has been evident, and remember, this is only one man's opinion, too much of a defeatist attitude. When something is proposed for our general betterment, there's been too much reaction of why it can't be done rather than how it can be done. I remarked in a previous chapter that cities, like individuals, have distinctive personalities. That is a perfectly normal circumstance. A city, after all, is nothing more than a composite of the people who make their homes there. And one of Beaumont's community sins may well be indecision and hesitation rather than forthright action. I would rather see us take a few more chances and get stung once in a while." So, 1968, 53 years ago, sometimes we deal with the same type issues, again, 53 years later. I just wanted to share that, and I'd like to make a copy of it and make it available to you.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper? Yes. I will. At the close of the city council meeting, the council will hold an executive session to consider matters related to the deliberation of the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property in accordance with Section 551.072 of the Government Code, to wit, 555 Main Street. Also, we'll consider matters related to contemplating or pending litigation in accordance with Section 551.071 of the Government Code, claim of Gerald Taylor Sr., individual as a surviving father of GT, descendant versus City of Beaumont, claim of L&L General Contractors. I would like to say that this will conclude not only this meeting, but my first meeting as mayor, and I look forward to serving the citizens of Beaumont and working with this council. We will recess to executive session. Thank you.